Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking closely at 22q11.2 deletion syndrome. You might hear it called 22q11DS.
Right. It's a genetic condition. Basically means a very small piece of chromosome 22 is missing.
And it's surprisingly common for this type of condition, isn't it? Like maybe 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 6,000 births. That's according to Regina and colleagues.
Yeah, that's about right. It's the most frequent microdeletion syndrome we know of. And because it's genetic, it can affect many different parts of the body.
It shows up in so many different ways,
Exactly. Very variable presentation from person to person.
which can feel overwhelming, I imagine. But today we want to really focus in on one specific area that keeps coming up in the research: sleep.
Ah, yes, sleep. It has such a huge impact on overall well-being, and it seems particularly relevant for individuals with 22q11ds.
Definitely. We've been digging into some very recent studies, all from 2025 actually, to find some practical, actionable things for parents, for individuals affected.
Good plan. Which studies are we looking at?
Okay, so we have one by Reich and colleagues in psychiatry research. It's called Multivariate Deep Phenotyping Reveals Behavioral Correlates of Non-Restorative Sleep in 22q11.2 Deletion Syndrome. Quite a title.
Sounds like it gets specific.
Then there's another one also in psychiatry research by Souders and colleagues: Sleep Difficulties Related to Psychopathology and Neurocognition in People with 22q11.2 Deletion Syndrome.
Okay, connecting sleep to thinking and mental health. Makes sense.
And finally, the one we mentioned earlier by Regina et al. In the American Journal of Medical Genetics Part A: Children with 22q11.2 Deletion Syndrome, Sleep-Disordered Breathing and Management.
So breathing issues during sleep. Got it. Looks like a good range.
Yeah, and the big takeaway right off the bat seems to be that sleep disturbances are, well, really common in 22q11ds. Both Souders and Regina really highlight this.
Absolutely. Souders' group found, I think it was almost 80%, 78% of the people they studied met criteria for at least one sleep disorder.
Yeah.
That's significant.
Wow, nearly 8 out of 10. And Regina's work gives us some clues about why that might be, physically speaking.
Right. They talk about the craniofacial anatomy, the structure of the head and face, which can be different in 22q11ds. Things like a smaller lower jaw.
Retrognathia or micrognathia.
Exactly. And also sometimes lower muscle tone in the throat area, pharyngeal hypotonia. These physical factors can make someone more prone to obstructive sleep apnea, OSA.
Where your breathing gets blocked or partly blocked while you sleep?
Precisely. But it's not just OSA. Souders' study identified a whole list: insomnia, trouble sleeping,
Falling asleep, staying asleep.
and sleep-disordered breathing, which includes OSA, plus things like delayed sleep phase disorder.
That's where your body clock is shifted much later.
Yeah, like a natural night owl tendency pushed to an extreme, and even restless leg syndrome. So quite a variety of potential issues.
Okay, and this other concept from the Reich study, non-restorative sleep. This sounds really important. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the idea that even if someone sleeps for what seems like enough hours, they just don't wake up feeling refreshed or restored, like the sleep wasn't doing its job properly.
I think we've all felt that sometimes, but this sounds more persistent.
Right. And Reich's research suggests it might be linked to brain activity during sleep. Specifically, they saw less of a reduction in slow-wave activity during the night. Normally, this deep slow-wave sleep decreases across the night, and it's thought to be really important for feeling rested.
So the brain isn't quite getting into that deep, refreshing sleep phase as much, or in the typical pattern.
That seems to be the implication. And crucially, they linked this pattern, this non-restorative sleep, to other difficulties.
Like what?
Well, they found connections with what psychiatrists call negative psychotic symptoms, things like reduced motivation or expression, also with ADHD symptoms, and even measurable cognitive challenges like slower processing speed and trouble with inhibitory control, stopping yourself from doing something impulsive.
Wow, okay. So poor sleep isn't just about feeling tired the next day. It can actually connect to behavior, to thinking skills, to mental health symptoms.
Exactly. Souders' paper really emphasizes this broader impact on cognitive development, psychopathology, and just daily functioning. They even talk about a potential vicious cycle.
How so?
Poor sleep might make psychiatric symptoms worse, maybe anxiety or attention issues. But then those worsening symptoms can make it even harder to get good sleep. It can feed itself.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so if you're a parent or an individual and you've just received a 22q11ds diagnosis, or maybe you're further down the line but thinking about sleep,
Yeah.
what are the first practical steps?
So a really clear message from basically all these studies is Screen for sleep problems.
Yeah.
Systematically. Don't just wait for problems to become obvious.
And Regina's team actually warns that just using standard sleep questionnaires might not be enough, right? They might miss things.
That's a key point. Because of the underlying physical factors sometimes involved, like the airway shape, a simple questionnaire might not capture the whole picture, especially for things like OSA.
They also mentioned something specific about infants.
Yes, they suggest that infants under 1 year old might be at higher risk for more severe OSA. So early evaluation in that age group could be particularly important.
So being proactive seems key. What does screening look like then if questionnaires aren't always enough?
Sauter's approach involved a really comprehensive sleep interview, really digging into sleep habits and any concerns. They also looked through electronic health records for clues.
So a detailed conversation with the doctor or a sleep specialist.
Yes, and if there are concerns based on that conversation or other signs, Regina et al. Mentioned using respiratory polygraphy or PG.
What's that involve?
It's a type of sleep study, often done at home. It monitors breathing effort, airflow, oxygen levels, heart rate during sleep to look for signs of disordered breathing like OSA.
Okay, so step one after diagnosis, or if you have concerns later, talk specifically about sleep with the medical team, ask about thorough screening, maybe even polygraphy if needed.
Exactly. Be direct about it. Now let's shift to support. If sleep problems are identified, what can be done? How can you support the person?
Well, given those links, we talked about sleep affecting mood, thinking, behavior. It seems obvious that prioritizing good sleep hygiene and treating diagnosed disorders is, well, critical. Both Reich and Souders really drive this home.
Definitely. And if OSA is the issue, it's worth knowing about treatment options. Adenotonsillectomy, removing tonsils and adenoids, is a common OSA treatment generally.
But
But Regina's study points out that for kids with 22q11ds, because of those anatomical differences we mentioned, surgery might not always be the complete fix it can be for other children. It might help, but maybe not resolve it entirely in all cases.
so manage expectations there. Are there other options for OSA?
Yes. CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. It's a machine with a mask worn during sleep that helps keep the airway open. Regina's paper mentioned it being used successfully in some of the children they studied.
Okay, so CPAP is definitely something to discuss if OSA is found. What about that non-restorative sleep issue from Reich's work? How do you tackle that?
That's trickier, perhaps. But the implication from Reich is that by identifying and managing any underlying sleep disturbances systematically, whether it's OSA, insomnia, or something else, you might directly improve those behavioral and cognitive outcomes they linked to poor sleep quality.
So fixing the measurable sleep problem could help with the feeling of not being rested and maybe those related attention or mood issues.
That's the hope and the direction it points towards. It really suggests working with specialists, maybe sleep doctors or neurologists, to understand the underlying sleep architecture, the patterns of sleep stages, and find tailored approaches.
Which really underlines the need for a team approach, doesn't it?
Absolutely. All the research points towards multidisciplinary care.
Yeah.
You need sleep specialists, pulmonologists, geneticists, psychologists or psychiatrists, maybe ENT doctors, all talking to each other.
That sounds ideal, but how do families actually find that kind of coordinated help?
It can be challenging, but specialized centers are often the best bet. Souders' study was done at the 22q and U Center, for example. Centers like that have the experience across different specialties, focused specifically on 22q11ds.
So seeking out a center with specific expertise in 22q is probably a good move if possible.
It certainly helps. And Regina's team adds a really important point about decision-making,
Which is?
that treatment decisions shouldn't happen in silos. It needs to be a collaborative discussion. The whole medical team, the parents, and crucially the individual themselves whenever they're able to participate. Everyone's input matters.
That collaborative approach is so important. So the message for families is really about advocacy.
Yes. Advocate for those thorough sleep assessments. Don't hesitate to bring up any sleep concerns, even if they seem minor. Ask questions. If you think there might be an issue, pursue it with the medical team.
Okay, great. So just to kind of wrap things up, it's clear that 22q11ds presents unique challenges, but these studies really shine a light on sleep as a key area where intervention can make a real difference.
Definitely. Understanding sleep's role and actively addressing any problems, whether it's OSA or feeling unrested, looks like it can positively impact behavior, thinking, daily functioning, just overall quality of life.
And it's reassuring to know there are dedicated professionals and specialized centers out there equipped to help navigate this.
Support is available. You're not alone in figuring this out.
So, maybe a final thought for you listening. Just knowing about the strong connection between how well someone sleeps and how well they function overall when living with 22q11ds is powerful. It empowers you as a family or an individual to make sleep a priority, to ask the right questions, and to seek out the evaluations and support that can lead to real improvements. Don't underestimate the power of a good night's sleep and the effort to achieve it.